All right. So everyone that we have on the line, we'll go ahead and get started. Rob, you want to go ahead and start recording?
It's going. Thank you.
All right. Well, good morning, and thanks to everyone for joining us today for our webinar, Electrify Your P&ID Documentations with SOLIDWORKS Electrical. My name is Aaron Smith, an account executive in the TPM Greenville location. Today we have Rob Stoklosa, a technical sales consultant for us in the Raleigh area. He specializes in electrical, PDM, and simulation, and he'll be providing content for this webinar. So again, thanks for spending the next hour with us, and we hope you enjoy the webinar. Rob, take it away.
Hey, thank you, Aaron. Hi, everybody. Thank you for taking the time this morning. I hope it's not raining where you are. It is where I am in Raleigh. I am Rob Stoklosa. I am a technical solutions consultant, and I'm out of Raleigh, North Carolina, and I work with TPM. And today we're going to kind of go over an area that we traditionally haven't seen a whole lot of attention on. For me personally, the reason we hadn't put attention into this was the functionality just didn't exist for a couple of years. But I feel it's time that we kind of introduce this to everybody. The functionality does exist. I'm comfortable rolling it out to you guys and working with you to get it implemented. So I'm here to say P&ID for SOLIDWORKS Electrical is an option. And that's what we're going to discuss today. So P&ID, process and instrumentation diagrams, for those of you that are new to this. But basically what that entails is both electrical and the piping information all contained within a single project for our case. But when we drop a pump or when we put in certain components into our design, not only is that pump an item, but that pump requires electricity. So traditionally, it's been a little difficult to be able to document both sets of information in one tool. And today I'm going to show you exactly how we do it with SOLIDWORKS Electrical. So this is kind of a P&ID diagram that we might run into at certain clients. You could see just by looking at a 50,000 foot overview, usually they're pretty complex and not the easiest thing on your eye. When we get into these, we have to learn how to read them, and you have to zoom in and you have to figure out what's going on, but they are pretty complex. And again, there's two sets of information that we're looking at here. Not only the manufacturing components like the pump, but we also need to run energy or run power to it. We also need to be able to make modifications to both of those items when revisions occur or we're scaling up our project, our system. So traditionally, this might be, something we'd see out there in industry today, and it does get the job done, but we're here to show you a different way that I do think is better. It's much more efficient, and for those of you that do this daily, I think SOLIDWORKS Electrical's interface is just much easier to palate. When you come in the morning and you have a good tool, it changes the way you approach things and your attitude. So hopefully you'll find that this will be the case as we go through it. So just to highlight some of the higher level aspects of what we'll talk about here. The first thing is intelligent diagrams. So with the previous slide, you'll notice that we have quite a few symbols here. This could have been done in AutoCAD. It could have been done in Visio. We've seen it all. But the moral of the story is any other product that you're using, these are just 2D symbols. They're just a block you bring in. They have attributes, and that's pretty much where the game stops. Making a change to, say, a pump would require you to understand where in that project that pump is referenced, and we'd have to locate that and make the change everywhere. And that's really where the benefit comes in when using SOLIDWORKS Electrical to do these types of diagrams. We just change it in one place, and it's going to locate where that pump is located throughout the project and make the change and corresponding components that go up to it. So that's really the big difference, is we have these intelligent diagrams, meaning these aren't just 2D symbols that represent a pump. They are intelligent. They are run through a SQL database that's in the background. It's really transparent to the end user, but that's maintaining all the relationships for us. The next bullet point that we're going to hit on today is SOLIDWORKS integration. This is another aspect you will not find anywhere else. We are able to take these 2D schematics that we just saw with these 2D symbols, and we're going to be able to bring that into our SOLIDWORKS mechanical program and actually utilize that information to help with our 3D pipe routing, along with placing components. All this is integrated. So again, a change in one place will reflect both environments, both 2D and the 3D mechanical part of it. And I will take you through that today. The last step that we want to talk about is usually where the rubber meets the road. It's reporting and documentation. Electrical and P&ID in particularly have much more regimented, strict requirements on what that report looks like from a bill of material standpoint, calling out lengths of wire, calling out lengths of pipe, and then the components within the system. So our reporting tool really is what wraps this all together. If we can't generate that information, then cool pictures, intelligent diagrams doesn't help us a lot. So I do understand here at TPM we do get that reporting and documentation is ultimately our deliverable, and we're here to help you with that as well. So between the three of these, it's a really nice package, and I'm finding it does get our users everything they need. So as we go through the program, I will take you through the 2D and into the 3D. For those of you that have fairly complex systems, I just wanted to mention here that this is a newer function we're seeing, but people are starting to question about how we can generate this information through Excel. And I'm just here to tell you that if you do have Excel sheets, or you find that generating this type of Excel document would be easier to create your circuits and to create your pump locations and whatnot, this is an option for you. It's a little bit more intense. We have to, excuse me, we have to format this to make sure that things can be read and that there's a handshake. But it is an option. It's a newer option that just recently came out. And I've been getting questions on it, so I thought I would just throw it out there and make sure you were aware that this was something we could look at. So if your system is a little more intricate and you guys want to follow this type of process, please get a hold of us and we can discuss that a little bit more. A few things to look for during the presentation is, of course, I mentioned that SOLIDWORKS 3D has P&ID capabilities. I'll show you where those are. We do tie into the routing package to help utilize the functions that already had built into it. But it is already out there, and it was a little bit cumbersome. Doing 3D routing is just, if you've done it, you've done it, and you know what I'm talking about. It is not the most friendly environment. So we're trying to utilize the good aspects of that tool and tie that into the 2D electrical application to help us route in 3D. And again, I'll illustrate that. SOLIDWORKS Electrical 2D has most of the capabilities that we require for this environment. So I always tell people, whether I'm routing or whether I'm documenting a wire or a conduit or a harness or a PVC pipe, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's kind of all represented as a line. And then in 3D, we take that line and turn it into whatever we want. If it's a PVC pipe, so be it. If it's a harness or a wire, so be it. So it's kind of all the same when you tear down, and get down to the basics of what this stuff does. It really is the same type of environment. We're just calling things different. Instead of a wire, we're going to call it a conduit or a pipe. And but the documentation really is the same, and that's why the electrical tool is something viable to look at for this. Now, I don't want you to get stuck on the fact that we have this electrical environment. Make no mistake, we have modified the environment, and we can do this through templates, or there's a multitude of ways. But this program does come with flow diagrams, P&ID symbols, PLC information, and we even have the EID, equipment identification diagrams, that can be generated. So although this is electrical that we'll be utilizing, make no mistake, we've added in some tools that are very specific to P&ID applications, including libraries, and that usually is something that my customer base is very interested in as well. So today what we're going to look at is a somewhat simple P&ID diagram just to keep things going smoothly today and in the interest of time. But I still think it will get the point across. So we're going to take a look at a 2D drawing that's a 2D schematic. We'll generate an additional run here that includes a pump with a couple of valves. And once we have that documented in 2D, we're going to take that and pop over to the 3D environment and have you route that, or I'll route that information and show you what that looks like. But make no mistake, that's why we're here today. What you see on the screen is not available in any other tool that you will find. The 2D program is on the left. It is really 2D. It is schematics. It is 2D symbols, lines, arcs, that kind of thing. But make no mistake, that ties right into SOLIDWORKS 3D Mechanical, where we will actually route those 3D pipes in space, give them nice color schemes for hot water, cold water, returns, whatever it may be. And you can see just the graphical representation and the impact that that has. It's almost priceless. Sometimes I'm hearing from, we're closing more business, we're quoting more, but we're closing more because we have these 3D models that we're able to show our customer base. We're also able to use these for maintenance and assembly diagrams. So there's a couple of reasons that, a 3D picture is helpful. Hopefully you have some idea in your mind where that would benefit your company. But those are things we've seen, usually from assembly, maintenance instructions, and just helping close business, maybe helping your marketing team and posting this stuff on your website. It's kind of whiz bang. It makes me think about your company a little differently when I see a picture like that. Not everyone can produce that. So enough of this. Let's get into the program and discuss how this is going to work. All right, so I brought over SOLIDWORKS 2D Electrical, and that's what you're seeing on the screen currently. It is organized in a similar manner to SOLIDWORKS or any Windows-based program these days, where we have these nice, easy-to-use toolbars across the top. So in a short period of time, 1 or 2 days of training, usually end users are up to speed pretty good on how to mitigate the program in the interface. Down here is really where I think is important. So for this one, this is a solar heat exchange demonstration. And every one of these P&ID systems that we run into, like I said, there's a documentation for the piping, and then there's something for the electrical. Usually they're independent. But what you can see here is this is kind of one-stop shopping, where we're going to put everything required for this system in one single project. I won't ever have to, look for where's the revision of this that matches this, and I know what goes on out there. That's what we're trying to avoid. This is one-stop shopping. You open the project. You can see here we have our first book, as it's called, and that contains our P&ID information, and then we have our second book, which contains solely our electrical information. Let me give you some of the ins and outs of how we can migrate through this. Most of our pages that you'll see here are generated automatically. I just do my work. The template and settings that we've built into the project are going to take over and start to populate these lists for me, just as I do my work. So it's really nice, concise, piece of information where we kind of start from the top and work our way down, but we're getting a better understanding of what we're about to see in here. Once we get into the schematics, you can see that this is where the detail is going to reside. So this is where we start drawing our piping routes or our wiring and whatnot, and adding the symbols. Now again, I said these symbols are not just 2D symbols, like with attributes. They are intelligent and they are tied to a database. So we'll look at what goes on behind these symbols, but they're not just there for, representation. As we get into the boiler P&ID, so we can start to break these out, again, I would just encourage you to keep an open mind of what this folder structure would look like for you. It does change at each company, and we can adjust it, but it's a tool we use to help you organize things so you can find this stuff. I went ahead and had generated a bill of material for that particular P&ID schematic. So you can see just very quickly, after I put the symbols and I ran some piping, this information, again, is all stored in that database, and it just populates automatically. I'm just doing my work. I don't have to tell it the quantities. I don't have to tell it manufacturers. I build these libraries up. I use the libraries, and this information is auto-populated. Same thing with piping. As we get in here, and we'll add some to this, but this is existing currently. Of course, this can be formatted any way you want. So if you don't want origin and destination, that's fine. We can build these columns however you guys need. We can concatenate certain information. These are really based off of SQL report. So I was not familiar with SQL reporting prior to getting into this. So if you're not, that's okay. Make no mistake, you're not alone. We have, staff that can help you write these SQL reports. Some companies have people on site that can write reports, but make no mistake, at the back end of this, it's simply a SQL report that we're pulling this information with. The program does come with many default ones, so a lot of times they work right out of the box, but some companies do like to adjust these for specific conditions. As we get into the electrical, so we'll see here now that we're down into the electrical area, I'm getting a different list pertaining to simply the electrical information. And then I get into a different drawing, which we hadn't seen in the P&ID. This is our electrical line diagram. So it's a 20,000 foot overview of what the system is going to look like. You can see here we have a couple pumps. We're going to utilize some of these going into a terminal block, and then of course that just continues on through the circuit. So again, this is a great graphical representation to include, and it doesn't take any more work. That would be one thing I would really want you to know is when we drop a symbol in, it's tied to that SQL database, and getting more information out of it is very, very simple. So we're not doing more work. We're just putting information in differently than we may have in the past. And the byproduct of having a SQL database is just access to that information everywhere very easily. So again, this is something I don't see all the time currently at our customer base. These line diagrams I'm finding are very beneficial just to give you that higher level overview of what this system, how it's laid out. As we continue down, you can see that now we get into the Power 2D schematic. So this is more traditionally where we would see, of course, the circuits and our symbols and whatnot. But just take note, this is pretty easy to understand. We have L2 is going to be our mechanical room. L3 is the heat exchanger closet. There's a pump with a circuit, and there's a pump with a circuit. So it's pretty easy to kind of understand. I'm a mechanical guy, so even if you're a mechanical guy, it's very easy to understand what you're looking at. As you migrate through these projects, just know this, we have a lot of built-in hyperlink information, so we can get around here pretty quickly. When you're getting into these from and to arrows, I just simply click it and tell it to go to the next one, and you'll see it takes me to wherever in this project that circuit continues. So I'm not searching for data like I used to. I'm not asking or taking the time of people who built these drawings. I'm able to do this by myself and not bother anyone and understand fully what I'm looking at here. So very helpful just in that case. And then of course our last one was the slash sheet was the controls. We will look at the 3D parts in a minute, but before we do that, I do want to go up here back to our control P&ID, and let's take a look at adding in this one little pump. All right, so first thing is, again, I'm in the 2D environment. I'm going to go ahead and just capture bring in a symbol. Now our symbol library, it is tied into the electrical environment, so you can see here that yes, I'm going to have some electrical things. If you're doing sole P&ID, we can help you, narrow this down. This is all based on templates, so if you don't want to show your end users all these subfolders, we can help narrow this down based on what the application is and what you're after. For today, I left everything on there so you can kind of get an idea. Here's the process and instrumentation subfolder, and then you can see some of those corresponding 2D symbols broken out into subfolders accordingly. All of these symbols can be modified. We can add to them. We can change them however you want. We can create these subfolders so it's a little bit easier for you to navigate. Just know that everything you see here, for the most part, can be customized to get what you need. So you have a couple options when you're looking through your library. I could just kind of delineate down into the pump environment and find what I want. Or we have a filter tab that's pretty handy where I can start to actually put in here, you know, the library that I want to look at, numbers of circuits, terminals, if that's something you wanted to add in. If you have descriptions, we can start typing descriptions in there and look for different types of files based on that. So just know that although the database is pretty intense, there are some tools that help you delineate down what component will work for a specific situation. Excuse me. So for today, however you go about it, we're just going to go ahead. I'll select my pump. This is based on a grid system, so you can kind of feel things snapping in place. It's pretty easy to locate things where you need it, and we'll just go ahead and drop that in there. So once I pop that symbol in, I do have some information I'm prompted with that I could put in here on the fly. You know, I could say this is specifically for this description. I could adjust for the locations of that, what the function is. I could do all that. I could also locate in my SQL database manufacturing parts that are available for me to utilize. So for this case, like I said, it was a pump. I could go in here. I could search on certain inputs and have it, excuse me, have it locate based on these inputs what pumps are available. So this helps maintain standardization within the company. Okay, down here are the circuits, or in this case for the pump, you know, how we can connect that in. You know, it's an hydraulic option. These are options that we build into this component, guys. You can customize this however you need. Now for this particular pump, I had mentioned to you that we already had this guy in here, right? And I don't want to do the work twice. So let's take a look at that line diagram, and you'll see that we have this P2 pump over here. And if I double click to just check that out, you'll see that that's already had a component attached to it, right? And here are those circuits again. So it doesn't matter how you go about this. I think this workflow is pretty nifty, where I can just kind of lay out my design in this type of environment, just throw things on the screen, draw a line representing a harness or a cable, and not getting into the weeds at this point. I'm just laying it out almost like I do in the mechanical environment on a napkin, right? It's almost just get it off my chest. This is what we need for this project. I can add information if I have it, or I could leave it until I do have the information. Sometimes we don't know who we're purchasing the pump from. So in this case, I had the information. I've applied it to this pump. And now we're going to just indicate or locate that pump in my schematic. So I'll go back here. We'll drop that symbol in. There it is. Start that over. And again, I'm just going to snap it in about to where I want it. Now in this case, because I did all that work I just mentioned, all I have to do is locate where that pump is in this tree. And all the information from that other symbol I just showed you, right down here, which is already populated, is going to be kind of ported over and associated to this 2D symbol. So I just click it, I hit OK, and I now have that P2 pump, and it is relative to the other one. I can confirm this by right-clicking on that symbol and saying Go To, and this is a really neat tool that we have. If I want to find out where in this project that pump is located or utilized elsewhere, I can click on it, and it will take me to wherever that pump is in this project, and vice versa. Right-click, Go To. There's the electrical. And there's the pump we just placed. So you can see this particular pump, the symbol is located in 3 places. There's a P&ID line diagram. There is the electrical circuit for the pump, and now there's this 2D schematic. 3 places for the same symbol, yet in one click I was able to associate it. And that's really what I want you guys to see out of that. We're not asking for more work, it's just simply connecting them to where they belong. I'm going to go ahead and connect this now to where that pipe run is going to actually take place. For this one, I have a group, as it's called, or a subcategory of piping, and I've created a custom piping scheme for this particular project. So I have certain colors and certain line types, if you will, that represent a pipe. But, right, our electrical stuff is all up here. Make no mistake, Hydraulics and pneumatics, also very capable, all the same. Like I was telling you, it doesn't matter if it's a wire or a hydraulic line or a cable or a PVC tube, it's all the same. So I've generated this in my library. I'm maintaining that. I'll go ahead and select that. And then I can just come out here and kind of draw where these two are going to connect. So I'll do the same thing over here and pop that in. Oop. Looks like I got it wrong. There we go. Much better. All right, so I think everybody can draw a line here, and there's really not much more to it. You'll notice that SOLIDWORKS over here has interpreted that these two lines intersected, and that became a connection point. On the storage tank, however, you'll notice I don't have that connection point yet. That's simply because the storage tank is utilizing a function called the black box up here. This is a great tool when you don't have symbols that are, or things change dynamically over time. You know, I have a storage tank, but in this project, it's going to have 5 connections. In the next project, it has 10 connections. It's a great tool to use when there's a variance in when you're utilizing that particular symbol. So this is called a black box. You can really attach into it as much or as little as you want. The only thing I really need to do when I'm done with this is to simply tell it to update so it finds that connection point. And that's how we utilize black boxes. They're kind of a do-all, end-all. They encapsulate a lot of information, but it gives us a little bit of room to maneuver around so that it's not quite as regimented. Like the pump symbol only had 2 connection points, right? The valves only have 2 connection points. The black box, it's kind of as little or as much as you need. All right, so at this point we've got it's laid out pretty good. We're going to go ahead and just continue looking for certain information here. So let's look for a pump. Oh, I'm sorry, I got the wrong environment there. And we'll go to our valves. And then you can see our library of valves, of course, right, indicating different types of valves and what we want. So this particular one, we're just going to put some stop gates in here, right, beginning in the front and the back of that pump. So I'll just take a simple gate valve. We'll locate that, and I can, again, pop that in where I want. At this point, I can apply a manufacturing part. I'll just select that ball valve. I've already filled this out, so it's located that. Double-click it, pulls it in, select it, hit OK, and I've applied that information to here. So what this is this valve, although it's a 2D symbol, if we look at it, it has this manufacturing part associated and these circuits associated to it. So again, once you build these libraries up, you can kind of see it's as simple as I'm showing you, where you're just kind of utilizing the environment. There's a symbol again. We'll pop in another one. Same thing. Go to my search, delineate down. I'm going to try to standardize and use the same part so purchasing doesn't get on me. We'll hit OK, and you'll notice I placed them in very easily. So we just do our work, right? Hopefully you're seeing that the program itself is finding connection points. It's doing the trimming. It's doing all the work for me to keep this, you know, annotation as clearly defined as possible. I'm just doing what I need to do. So we place this in, and again, keep in mind how these symbols are attached. Another thing I like to point out to people here is the list of components. So sometimes we're coming in here and we're not adding new things. We just want to find existing things. Maybe we're troubleshooting or we're looking for scalability, whatever it may be. You know, you're opening a project that was maybe completed a couple months ago. Just know that you can come in here. Any person can come in here once they've learned this. First of all, you have a really nice flyout indicating, you know, what's what and what's where. But we also have some search capabilities. So I can right-click and search on that project, and I can search on different aspects of what I'm looking for. So in the past, maybe you always had to know the mark, or you always had to know, you know, the class of what you were looking for. Just know this is a very intricate query. So I can put in here whatever information I have or don't have and have it find that. So again, I could look into a pump and have that locate anywhere in this project that there's a pump. And maybe that's all I know, is that I'm looking for a pump. I'm not sure which one. Now I can locate that, say go to browser, it would locate it in the tree for me if I like. You can do some additional work on it, to understand what that is. Usually we're saying go to browser. Again, it's now found that pump, and here are the 3 places in this project that pump is located. So again, if we right click and go to, there's place number 1, place number 2, place number 3. All the same pump, all documenting different information. So for those of you that do this daily, I know that you're with me right now and you're saying that was pretty good, that you got all that tied together in one place and you could locate all that in a simple right click. If you did get that, great, because that's what I want to illustrate is how fast you can kind of maneuver around your project, not just adding in new stuff, but being able to leverage the information you already have. Okay. So we'll come back to this in a minute. I will be exporting this out and we'll create some bill of materials and things off that. But from my overview, this is our 2D environment. It all starts here. You can't do the 3D without doing the 2D because we actually do look at this sort of information. And hopefully you're seeing that the interface really works with you and it doesn't take a heck of a lot of time to get up to speed. Okay. Next step, I'll fire up SOLIDWORKS here. So now I've pulled over SOLIDWORKS Mechanical. And this is usually where our mechanical designers and engineers, this is where they live, right? So this is the interface for SOLIDWORKS. There is an add-in, 2 of them that I've turned on here. So I've turned on routing because today we're doing routing. If I was doing wiring schematics, that's not necessary. And then down here, I've also turned on our SOLIDWORKS Electrical add-in. So within the mechanical environment, you have the access to both of those add-ins. When I do that, I get a nice little button on the right here. And as a mechanical guy, I can just kind of log in. I don't know what's going on, right? I'm just logging in the morning, and I say, oh, we're working on a heat exchanger. Okay, it's showing me that it's red. That means that people are working on it. It will indicate that to me. I could, find out who that was, make sure that we're all on the same page. It's not an error. It's just indicating, hey, there's an electrical person who is actually working on this project simultaneously as you. I don't think you can do that with anything else, guys, so that's pretty neat in itself, right? So a change in one place is going to affect the other. So you can see here we have the same kind of information that we just saw in the 2D program, exactly the same. I can create, DXF or DWG files to spit this out and have people access it and be able to view it elsewhere. But the environment is going to look exactly the same. So today we want to go ahead and address this P&ID, the P&ID components. So we do have a 3D model that we generated previously to this. So I'll just go ahead, double click it, and it's going to open up that 3D model. So once again, let's get rid of those fonts. Once again, I'm not searching for data, right? It's all in the same place. I don't have to say, hey, Joe, where's the 3D model, that fits to that revision of our schematic? It's all right here. So there is no more looking for it. It's just open that project and you will have everything you need. For those of you that like to keep track of history of these things and how they got to the final design, then we can just, create backups of these. They're almost like a zip file where you have 4 or 5 zip files, each indicating a different point in time in your design iteration. So you can access those earlier versions if need be. So from the mechanical standpoint, again, we're in SOLIDWORKS Mechanical. I'm going to fly this out here so you can see it a little better, just to make sure there's no smoke and mirrors. Right, this is our SOLIDWORKS Mechanical. This is our tree just how it is. We have a couple of pipe runs right here. You can see those have already been ran for us. And as I go to the right, we also have our electrical manager. Now the electrical manager, this is typically where the mechanical guy is going to do their work. They're going to come in here, they're going to expand these out, and we'll be able to very quickly see what work was done and what work wasn't done. All right. So as I expand these out, you'll see that anything with a check mark, that's been placed into the project already. And anything that doesn't have a check mark, that's work to be done. So there's no 3D model representing, for instance, this 2-inch PVC ball valve. However, there is one located here. And I can click it and I see it highlight. So that's how I know what work I have to do or that hasn't been accomplished, but it is in the 2D schematic. And make no mistake, we are reading that schematic right now. A nice tool that's available for us is to be able to come up here and say hide components already inserted. That way anything left, I know this is the work I have to do. It's kind of filtered out items that have already been placed into the assembly. So that's kind of the breakdown of how that's going to all work together. Let's go ahead and insert this pump now, okay? So right click, we're going to say insert the pump, and you'll see that that pump is attached to my cursor. Now at this point, some work has been done, make no mistake. Getting the handshakes between a 2D symbol on a schematic and a 3D model in a 3D environment, it doesn't happen without some modifications and library creations on your part. So we do have to address that. This pump has these CP points, as you can see on the screen, and really the CP points are where things can connect into it. So we've gone ahead and done that. We've even done one better where we built in some smart mates. So for the end users, we're not always seeing that, advanced SOLIDWORKS users are doing this kind of work. Sometimes it is the electrical person, and they've just taken a little bit of mechanical training. So we utilize some of the SOLIDWORKS tools to be able to snap things in place so that you don't have to fully understand, how mating goes on, all the little buttons and things. This is just automatically popping in place because we told it to look for the 4-bolt pattern, and anytime it finds that, it will locate itself and automatically know how to reside in space. So I've gone ahead, I've inserted that pump, and you can see I now have a check mark. So very good. The next step is to start to do these routing, okay? So let's assume we've placed in whatever components we want. I'm ready to go ahead and get to routing. In order to get to routing, we're going to just simply, and there's a couple ways to go about this. This is my workflow and process. I usually will locate the part and simply right-click on it and say Start Route. That sets the program up to know that I want something to route to that pump, all right? And it just saves me a couple steps. We can set up some templates. You can set up some, information for rules of engagement, what's the maximum radius is, things of that nature. So again, this is another area, if you're doing piping, we would recommend that you set up some templates for yourself just to make sure you're using the right kind of pipe. The pull downs here, these are all based on information that you build in. So if you don't do 2-inch pipe because you don't purchase it, then that won't be an option for the end user to select from here. So we do manage everything you guys are seeing. And again, it's usually based off of information provided to us from your purchasing department. So I've gone ahead and said I wanted to start the route on that pipe, and you can see it puts me into a sketch environment. And I am in a 3D sketch environment, just so you know. How do I know? Well, when I click the line command, you're seeing that I get the X, Y. If I hit tab, I get Y, Z. And if I hit tab one more time, I get the ZX. So this is a 3D sketch environment. This does take a little practice, no doubt. I have some tips and tricks that I usually teach my clients, to help manage this. I've done quite a bit of this work now, and like everyone, when I first started doing 3D routing and piping, it was a little bit cumbersome in my head, but I have learned to deal with it. So we're going to come out here, and you can see I'm just going to start to kind of route this pipe. As I route the pipe, I can change axes, if you will, simply by hitting that tab key. So now I want to kind of come back out to me. I hit the tab key. Now I want to go up. I hit the tab key. So we're just going to kind of locate this. I usually will just eyeball these things in place at this point, not trying to get anything too perfect. And then I'll terminate that into here. Okay. Now there's a couple ways, like I said, everyone has a method they use for 3D piping. This is mine. Mine is to get the stuff on the screen and then go ahead and utilize some of the tools. So the first tool we're going to do, of course, is I want to make this thing come straight out, right? So let's go ahead. I'll hit that, and I'm going to say that that line is along X, and then it kind of connects in, and now I'm just kind of eyeballing it, right? So I can kind of move this around so I can locate it. There's my hanger at the top. See the pipe hanger? Well, looks like I missed it. I can just kind of move it, right? I could make tangent relations so things are perfect, but in a lot of cases, that's not what we're after. We're just after a close enough representation, if you will. So again, through training, if you haven't done or you have done this and it's given you a little bit of a hassle, I think it's just a matter of learning how to do the 3D sketch environment. I don't have that much trouble with it anymore. Things do snap into 3D space from time to time, but you can see I was able to route that fairly quickly using my process, and I do find that with almost anything, simple or complex. Okay, so now I have this connected in from the start point, the end point, wherever I got to go. We're going to go ahead and I'm just going to locate now that 2-inch PVC ball valve. So that was the next thing. We had 2 valves in here. I'll go ahead, right click, say insert, and you'll see how that kind of snaps in, right? So where this is located, the schematic's not indicating that, of course. It's just saying that there was one in front and one behind. So it's our duty as a mechanical person to understand what the function of these are and to place these appropriately. But I could just very quickly go in here and insert these valves wherever I need them inserted. And you can move them after the fact, but hopefully you're seeing that, you know, those snapping smart mates, this makes this a pretty viable option when you're looking at this. Again, you do need to build this stuff in. The valve in this case had specific sizing. If I had tried to put a 2-inch valve on a 4-inch pipe, it would give me an indication that, Rob, you're kind of crazy. I'll do it if you want, because, you know, God knows what you got. You might have a great PVC guy who's going to be able to reduce that somehow on the in the field, whatever. So we simply alert you to conditions that might break the rules, but we don't really hold your, you know, we're not holding your workflow back. We still allow you to continue to do that work. I'm going to go ahead and just accept that for now. We'll get back out to the sketch, and you can see that we've kind of routed that in place. One more time to get to the top level, and we have our pipe route. Okay, so from the 2D to the 3D environment, you can see it's completely collaborative. If I were to go add more information to that schematic, it would show up here instantaneously to the to the mechanical person. So it is very fluent. It is very collaborative. And again, just know that the backstory here is a SQL database. That is the differentiator. No other programs are utilizing that tool, but that's what's making everything work in the SOLIDWORKS Electrical product. Okay. So the next thing I wanted to take you back to here was some of that documentation, as I mentioned, right? So now we've gone ahead, we've done our 2D schematic. Again, we saw that 2D P&ID schematic also had a nice line diagram indicating the electrical information along with a detailed 2D electrical schematic, so I know how the pinouts and how to connect that pump up and get some energy to it. So I think we've got a pretty good project here. The last step I would typically go through would be to actually gain some information, maybe export this out to a DWG or a PDF file if I wanted to get this to the rest of my my team. But it's up to you really what that process looks like. So assuming that we've got some things out to the rest of our team, I'm going to go ahead and select my reports. And this is the SQL reporting tool I mentioned. So just a quick rundown on it without getting too far into it. Oh, I don't know what just happened there. Oh, got to toggle over. There we go. So these are the reports that come with the product. Again, just, you know, you can kind of get an idea, book of revisions, harness information. This usually is kind of the get it done reporting tool. Most of the things my customers need are in here. You can turn these on or off as required. And as you pull those in, you'll see that it actually generates these lists. It gives you a preview of what that documentation will look like so that you know you've got the right item. And then if you really wanted to get into it, like I said, each one of those reports you can get into and really customize, what the column headers are called out, the layouts, and again, the last thing here would be to go into expert mode where we can actually modify the SQL report itself. So all that information is available to you. For today, I'm just going to go ahead and say, yep, I needed a bill of material, I needed a list of pipes by style, and a complete drawing list. When I have everything I need on the screen, I would go ahead and just simply say generate drawings. I could tell it which ones I want to generate to. You'll see here I already have a bill of material in my electrical, so I'm just going to go ahead and skip that for today. We'll hit OK. It's going to populate these reports for me. When it's done, it gives me just an indication that everything was successful. And now as I look in my tree, you'll see there's the bill of materials we recently added. Here's a list of pipes, like I mentioned before, and they're all part of this particular project. This might be the time when I would go ahead and export that out to a PDF file, e-drawings, whatever your format may be. These are things we can talk about because there's not always a process in place. A lot of times you guys are using just the DWG, but I'm trying to encourage my clientele, if you're going to this application, let's do it right. There's a much better way to communicate to our manufacturing team or whoever other than a DWG file. So I'm not against it. It's possible, but just know that, when you're looking at new technology, just like the line diagram, just because you don't have this in place, I would encourage you to look at that. That's a pretty nice tool. So anything you saw today that you're like, wow, we don't have that, a lot of times when we are implementing new technology, processes and workflows need to change. And if they don't change, I almost get concerned that, what did we bring over from the past that may not work with this new technology? So it's something that we can help out with. Please, feel free to leverage us. That's exactly what we're here for. All right. So that's my rundown on it. You can see we took you through the 2D, went into 3D, ran some pipes. I did mention how everything was intuitive and kind of tied together. And I hope that this at least gets you food for thought on how you can utilize the SOLIDWORKS Electrical product to accomplish your P&ID tasks. One-stop shopping, that whole project's contained within one environment. That's something I don't see anywhere else. The fact that we could communicate and collaborate with mechanical teams, you don't find that anywhere else. So hopefully you did find the benefits of today's webinar, helpful, and at least give you something to bring back to your team to discuss. And when you're ready to really take a deeper dive into this, feel free to call out, to reach out to us, and we'd be more than happy to, give you a presentation specifically for your conditions. So I thank you all for your time today. Have a great dry day and try to warm up if it's cold by you. Thank you, everybody.